Welcome to the Inforonics SupportCast, bringing you insight and tips from the world of customer, technical, and infrastructure support. Inforonics SupportCast starts now.
Welcome to the Inforonics SupportCast Weekly. I'm Matt Hooper, and I'm with nobody. As things happen in a support organization, you can imagine, everybody's busy. We have clients in today, and Ted and Scott and Jeff are straight out. We have lots of projects going on, so you'll have to bear with me today. Well, we're going to talk about something today that is very passionate to me, dashboards. Monitoring solutions have been something that I've been working with for a number of years. And in fact, when I left working for an internal IT organization and went to do some consulting, a major focus of my consulting work was building dashboards and building monitoring solutions that integrated both technical metrics and business metrics into dashboards. Here at Inforonics, we have such a high desire to give our clients a very customized dashboard, because at the end of the day, it's all about the information in its context that means anything to anybody about what they need to do. So we're going to go through some principles about building dashboards, dynamic dashboards that help us to look at information that's happening within our systems and within our technology or infrastructure, whatever it is that Inforonics is providing to our clients as a service, to understand what they really need to do. And we take it through these basic principles of elicitation and information gathering. The what, the when, the where, the why, and the how, right? So when we look at dashboards, we want to see a pictorial view or some contextual information that's giving us some substance. IDLE talks about it in the terms of DIKW, data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. And when we're training folks on IDLE and our folks here as we're discussing this principle of DIKW, I like to use an analogy that is of a person standing in a field. The person standing in the field is in this green grass all around. But notices between their feet are two parallel steel bars. And these steel bars run off as far as they can see in front of them, as far as off behind they can see. And these steel bars, the parallel bars, are connected by these wooden tiers that bring these things together. Well, what are we talking about here? Well, that collection of data put together helps someone know from an information standpoint contextually that they're standing on a railroad track. In that railroad track, then, they also add other elements of data that are within context. They see puffs of smoke in the distance. And as the distance, in the distance, as that puff of smoke gets closer, they start to hear the sounds of a whistle. What is it? Of course, it's the train, right? That train is coming on the tracks, and as we see the puffs of smoke getting closer, we know that the train is getting closer. That information then, again, is data within context. We then apply judgments, things we've learned from science, such as two objects of mass cannot occupy the same space at the same time, and the greater mass will dominate over the smaller mass. So we then start applying that knowledge that the train is getting closer. I'm standing on the tracks, and I'm smaller than the train, so what? Wisdom kicks in. Wisdom is the action that you need to take, why you need to take it. I need to get off the tracks, and I need to get off quickly because the train is moving quickly at me. And once this train gets over this particular space of the track, I cannot be here, or I'll be obliterated. So that's an analogy used to try to help understand lots of different data elements. You don't need all those data elements necessarily to make the judgment call or to take an action. In fact, as we get experiences in life, we almost need less data and more information. And then as we get some real basis for our understanding of an environment or of a team, we can then just use knowledge and wisdom. Sometimes it can be a sore spot where you're trying to explain something to someone and they're not listening to you. And so they're just using their prejudgments to make decisions, right? We call that prejudices. Prejudices aren't always bad. Dashboards work off the same principles. As dashboards grow, we want to take in those 5 different elements of collection of information. So what are they again? Well, let's walk through those. The first one is the what. What's happening? What is happening simply means there's something wrong or something that's deviated from normality, and we need to eventually take an action, but we need to know the why we need to take the action, where we need to take the action, things like that. Okay, so really we consider this the priority. So in a dashboard, we want to roll up things of high priority, things of high consequence or of high relevance. So the what it is very important. The time spent then, or the time span of when these things occurred, is the urgency, the when. When it happened is very important to setting that priority, because we may have to act quickly knowing that this has been down for some period of time or will cause some kind of business impact. We then add to that the where, or the impact itself within the system, the business process, or the location. Maybe it's affecting a lot of users, maybe it's only affecting a small amount of users, maybe it's a component of the system that's impacting all the other components, or maybe it's just a random component that doesn't have a lot of business impact whatsoever. That level of impact also then helps us to understand the what. In IDLE, we actually talk about that. We say urgency and impact equal priority. Right? So very important for us to know when it happened, time of day, how long it's been down, how quickly we need to respond, where it happened, meaning where it happened within the business process, where it happened within the system, where it happened within a location, okay, to add some more context to that. Incident management really focuses on restoring that service to normal operation. So we may not particularly care why it happened from a true root cause standpoint, but we have to sort of know why it happened within a system failure to get to the right level. So if it was a network switch that failed, for instance, we need to know why there was an impact, because that's going to get us to the network switch that failed. But why the network switch failed, we don't necessarily need to dig into that just yet. We can just restart the network switch, reboot it, fix it, whatever we need to do to restore the normal operation and get back on our way. But the dashboard also wants to record some of that, because if it continues to happen, well, we know that works itself into problem management. But also, too, we need to understand the why, because it helps us with the dependencies. And it also helps us to understand if we have to reset thresholds. If it happened because it hit a limitation that we didn't necessarily pick up with our monitoring tools, we'd need to reevaluate our instrumentation. Or if the failure happened from a more of a business perspective, we didn't respond in time, or we didn't know who to call, well, then we need to tweak or tune our escalation procedures or adjust the time that we need to respond to things. So the why is also very important from a process improvement standpoint. And then the how is, how do we get alarmed? How do we get notified about this? How do we take action? How do we tell people what the status is of this, so we can have multiple people working on it? If you remember back from episode 1, where we talked about the incoming email floods that can happen, how is a big thing here for us. And so on our dashboards, we are presenting who has ownership of that particular request, so we don't have two people working on the same item at the same time. If you remember back from the episode with Ted, when we talked about the infrastructure monitoring and the actions and the status, how also affects the alarming suppression that happens at all the other layers. Because we don't want to take action on a web service that is down because really the firewall is down, and sending off the firewall alarm and the web services alarm to two separate people to have them both take action. Really what we want to do is make some determinations that the web service is down because of the firewall, and a notification goes to the web services team so they get the heads up. Different from the action that the firewall team would have to take to actually get the firewall restored to normal service operation. It's a big difference there. So how does this help with dashboards? Well, dashboards are going to work in very much the same way. We're going to have all this information that needs to roll up in the right levels of contextual application. We typically do this through service models. What a service model is the service that people are going to be looking at to see whether it's up or down, the interfaces that support that service, the supporting applications and processes that support that service, and then we tie the elements of data collection to each of one of those. And then what we do is we then use those elements to be pieced together to provide us real-time data feeds. Now the model doesn't change too much once we set it up, but all the values within each of the piece of the model, those are going to change constantly. So we use integration tools. We're pulling information from our phone switches. We're pulling information from our networks. We're pulling information from, say, our software that's managing our timesheets or managing our vacation time, things like that. All these things come together so that we can have the right levels of dashboards. If you've seen the Inforonics dashboards, you know that we have avatars that are representing people who are on the phones. They're turning red, yellow, green, depending on whether that person's on the phone, whether they're not available right now to take a call, or they are available to take a call. And that helps the shifts to look at the queue and see how much they are into that particular depth of the queue, whether they need to get some more resources on it or not. But the avatar, for even show up, the person has to be working in that shift. We don't flood the dashboard with all the people from the call center because it's too much clutter. It adds no contextual value. So that dynamics of it really needs to tie in other information, such as who's working that day. Are they going to be on vacation? Are they there? So when we're thinking about dashboards for our clients and for ourselves, we're trying to look into all the different places we're storing information, all these different data points, how we relate those together contextually, and achieve what we're setting out to do, which is what's happening, when did it happen, where is it impacting, why is it impacted, and how are we going to resolve it. Lots of examples of our dashboards are available to our clients through our client portal. I invite you to take a look there. Many new advancements are coming up. Now that we're looking at the past trends and past data, top 10 reports for servers that are the most frequently causing issues, network devices that might be frequently causing issues, top 10 reports on capacity for disk space, top 10 reports for CPU and memory. These are great reports because they help you to see where in the environment do we have fragility. We also have reports that we're generating for the number of releases that are causing incidents. This is important from a tech support standpoint because as each one of our clients releases a new feature, if they haven't thoroughly tested it, well, that's going to cause a lot of support issues. And we want to know, are we doing a better job in our testing practices over time by having a greater reduction in the number of tech calls that come in? So again, the relationship map between some of these disparate pieces of data are obviously still opportunities for improvement for us here at Inforonics, but things that we are definitely focused on and seeing some great improvements in. And then what we're trying to do next is really take this to a more visual component. Visual operations allows us to make real-time decisions based off of visual concepts. So for instance, if you see a report with a whole bunch of metrics, it's very difficult to see that. You may see a whole bunch of lines. But if we see a report that shows us some kind of trend over time that's rising or lowering, it's a lot easier to get a glimpse of what's going on, make some determinations about that. So thank you again for joining us, Inforonics SupportCast Weekly. I'm Matt Hooper. Sorry we didn't have a guest this week with us. We'll get someone back on next week. But thanks for tuning in. We are definitely going to look forward to following back up on service level agreements. Last week I talked with Jeff on dynamic SLAs. Lots of feedback on that. We appreciate that. We want to hear from our clients. We want to hear from those of you who are not our clients, who are just tuning in and getting some benefit from these. Please continue to send emails, leave comments on our blog. Happy to revisit it. Some of the comments around service level agreements were, can you get more practical? Can you really get into helping us understand how we start measuring to know what actions we need to take? When does the SLA kick in? How do we know that we're about to breach an SLA? Things like that. So we'll really get into some very tactical discussions around a call center. Because that's really where our SLAs have the greatest impact because somebody's on the phone there. Of course, the infrastructure monitoring and support side of the house, SLAs are extremely important there as well too, but there's a lot more control over that. With end users, there's not as much, and so expectations are much harder to predetermine. So we're going to really get into that. Hope you tune in next week. Again, I'm Matt Hooper. Thanks for joining us on Inforonics SupportCast Weekly.